Hey everyone, I hope you are doing well. I'm Susan and welcome to Prana Life, and thank you for joining me for this full body vinyasa focused on strength and flexibility. We will begin starting in downward dog pose, moving our legs any way we wish, bringing some energy to our legs, to our spine, starting to detach from any static in our mind, bringing our awareness to a present moment state on our mat. And when ready, coming into a static hold in downward dog. Awareness can be on our breath, inhaling through the nose, deep into the belly, exhaling through the nose, starting to still our mind. Inhaling as we step forward into a halfway lift. Long exhale, forward fold. Long inhale, halfway lift. Long exhale, forward fold. Inhaling into an upward salute. Exhale, mountain pose Tadasana. Placing hands over heart to set an intention. Returning to mountain pose Tadasana. To warm up, we will be doing 5 rounds of sun salutations A. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Chaturanga vinyasa, or stepping back to downward dog. Holding in downward dog for 5 breaths. Long, smooth breaths. Inhaling and exhaling through the nose, deep into the belly. Inhale, stepping into a halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, mountain pose. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Chaturanga vinyasa, or stepping back into a downward dog. Holding in downward dog for 5 breaths. Inhale, stepping into a halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, mountain pose. Round 3, flowing on your own. Round 4. Round 5, last round. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Chaturanga vinyasa, or downward dog. Holding in downward dog for 5 breaths. Inhale as you step forward into halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, mountain pose Tadasana. Inhaling, upward salute. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Chaturanga Vinyasa or stepping back to downward dog. In downward dog, inhaling as you step the right foot through the hands, rising into warrior one. Full even breaths into an engaged core. Exhaling as you transition into warrior two, continuing full even breaths into an engaged core. Exhaling as you transition to half moon pose, you can place your left hand behind your back for balance, standing here if you wish, and when ready, extending that left arm, steady breaths into a lightly engaged core. If you fall out of the pose, it's okay, just come right back into it. And option to reach back for your foot to come into sugarcane. Continuing steady breaths into a lightly engaged core. Stepping back as we exhale into a standing forward fold, halfway lift, Chaturanga Vinyasa, or stepping back into downward dog. Inhaling as we step the left foot through the hands, rising into warrior one. Full even breaths into an engaged core. Exhaling into warrior two. Full even breaths into an engaged core. Placing the right hand behind the back as we transition into half moon, staying here if you need to find balance, or option to extend the right arm upward. Steady breaths into a lightly engaged core. An option to reach back for your right foot, coming into sugarcane. Releasing the foot, stepping back, exhaling into a forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, coming into a high plank pose, and we will be doing side plank on the left side first. Full even breaths into an engaged core here. Exhaling as we transition to side plank on the right side, finding your balance. Full even breaths into an engaged core. Exhaling into Chaturanga Vinyasa or stepping back into downward dog. Holding in downward dog for 5 breaths. Inhaling as we step forward into a halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale into upward salute. Exhale into mountain pose. Flowing through this sequence again. Inhaling upward salute. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Chaturanga Vinyasa or stepping back into downward dog. Inhale as we step the right foot through the hands, rising into warrior one. Exhaling into warrior two. Left hand behind back, transitioning into half moon pose, and if you have good balance, extending the left arm. Option to reach for the left foot for sugarcane pose. Releasing the left foot, stepping back into a standing forward fold with an exhale. Inhale, halfway lift, Chaturanga Vinyasa, or stepping back into downward dog. Inhale as we step the left foot through the hands, rising into warrior one. Exhaling into warrior two. Right hand behind the back, transitioning into half moon pose. Staying here if you're looking for balance. If you have good balance, extending the right arm. And option to get that right hand and reach back for the right foot to come into sugarcane pose. Releasing the right foot, stepping back and exhaling into a standing forward fold, inhaling into a halfway lift, coming into a high plank, and when ready, transitioning into side plank on the left-hand side, left hand on the mat. Transitioning into side plank on the right side. Returning left hand to mat for Chaturanga Vinyasa, or stepping back into downward dog. Holding in downward dog for 5 breaths. Inhaling as you step forward into halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, mountain pose Tadasana. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, Chaturanga Vinyasa, or stepping back into downward dog. Inhale as we step the right foot through the legs, rising into a high lunge. Full even breaths into an engaged core. Exhale as we twist to the right, continuing full even breaths into an engaged core. And long inhale as we transition into extended side angle. Steady breaths here into a lightly engaged core. Exhale, hands to mat for Chaturanga Vinyasa, or stepping back into downward dog. Inhale as we step the left foot through the hands, rising into high lunge. Full even breaths into an engaged core. Exhaling as we twist to the left, continuing full even breaths into an engaged core. Long inhale as we transition into extended side angle. Steady breaths into a lightly engaged core. Exhale, hands to mat, stepping back into a high plank and then lowering down into a forearm plank. We will be remaining here for about 10 breaths, just building strength in the whole entire body. Full even breaths into an engaged core. Exhale, lowering our belly to the mat and inhaling into cobra. Exhaling into downward dog. Remaining here for 5 breaths. Inhaling as we step forward into a halfway lift. Exhale, standing forward fold. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, mountain pose. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Chaturanga vinyasa or stepping back into downward dog. Inhale as we step the right foot through the hands, coming into high lunge. Exhale, twisting to the right. Long inhale, transitioning into extended side angle. Exhale, hands to mat for a Chaturanga Vinyasa or stepping back into downward dog. Inhale, stepping the left foot through the hands, rising into high lunge. Exhale, twisting to the left. Long inhale, transitioning into extended side angle. Exhale, hands to mat, coming into a high plank, lowering down for a forearm plank. Exhale as you lower to your belly and chest, coming into prone pose as your forehead rests on the back of your hands. Your spine should be straight, extended through the crown, letting our heart and respiratory rate slow down. Inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth if you need to cool your body down. Placing forehead on the mat, arms are in cactus position as we will exhale, coming into a locust pose with cactus arms, full even breaths into an engaged core. Exhale, returning to prone pose. Extending arms overhead, forehead on mat. Exhaling as we come into inverted locust or Superman pose, continuing full even breaths into an engaged core. Exhale, returning to prone pose. Once again, letting our heart and respiratory rate slow down. And as our heart and respiratory rate slows, we want to have long, smooth breaths, inhaling through the nose deep into the belly, exhaling through the nose as we start to prepare the mind and the body for seated floor stretches, letting our nervous system relax and come into a parasympathetic state. Rising into tabletop as we transition into child's pose, balasana embryo, forehead on the mat, hands grabbing heels behind us, allowing ourselves to ground in this position, continuing long, smooth breaths, inhaling through the nose deep into the belly, exhaling through the nose, awareness on our breath to still our mind. Let our mind and body harmonize. Inhaling as you rise into tabletop, cross your ankles and roll back to seated staff pose Tandasana, remaining here for a few breaths. Exhale as you come into a seated forward fold. Long, smooth breaths, inhaling and exhaling through the nose, deep into the belly, letting everything just slow down, finding that present moment awareness on your mat. If your mind is jumping, just keep your awareness on your breath. Inhaling into staff pose Tandasana, and then we'll be coming into either Janu Shirsasana, head to knee forward fold, as I'm showing you here, or an option to come into Marichyasana A. Finding that bind, and when you have the bind, lowering down, continuing long, smooth breaths into the belly, inhaling and exhaling through the nose. Inhaling as we return to staff pose and just shake our knees out a little bit, and then transition to Janu Shirsasana on the other side, or option to come into Marichyasana A on the other side. Continuing long, smooth breaths deep into the belly, inhaling and exhaling through the nose. Inhale, returning into staff pose, shaking out the knees, and then remaining here for a few breaths. Transitioning into square pose or fire log pose, the shins of our legs should be parallel with the top edge of the mat. We have our right foot or leg on top of the left, the toes are flexed, and then placing your hands behind your back and lowering down, remembering to move in a pain-free range here. Continuing long, smooth breaths deep into the belly, inhaling and exhaling through the nose. And as you hold this pose and the tissues start to open, you can just slowly inch lower and closer to the mat. Inhaling as we rise up, placing fingertips behind the mat and just gazing upwards to do a tiny back bend. And when ready, switching our legs. The left leg is now on top, toes are flexed, the shins are parallel with the top of your mat. Reaching for the wrist behind your back when you're ready, and lowering down once again. Inhale, rising up, fingertips behind the hips on the mat once again as you gaze upward for a mini back bend. Returning to staff pose, Dandasana, to shake out those knees. And when ready, scooching forward on your mat as you lower onto your back. You'll be putting your index and thumb together in a diamond shape underneath your hips as you come into half shoulder stand, flexing your feet, staring up at your toes, continuing long, smooth breaths. Option to remain here or begin transitioning into plow pose. If you feel any pain in your body, just return into half shoulder stand. Continuing long, smooth breaths deep into the belly. Option to transition into snail pose. Reaching for your feet if you wish, or keeping your arms behind you as you have them in plow pose. Exhale as you transition back into a plow pose, and then slowly lower your hips back to the mat into half shoulder stand. Transitioning into reclined bound butterfly. Arms are extended overhead, keeping your awareness on your breath to keep your mind still. Closing your eyes here if you wish. Opening the heart space, source of infinite love and wisdom. Transitioning into Shavasana pose, becoming comfortable on your mat, closing your eyes, continuing long, smooth breaths, inhaling through the nose, deep into the belly, exhaling through the nose, softening your jaw, relaxing your tongue, allowing your body to become heavy on the mat. Choosing to take this time to rest. Starting to wiggle fingers and toes and bring some awareness back into the body, extending arms overhead for one big body stretch. And then placing your hands behind your legs as you rock back and forth on your mat, massaging your spine. Coming into easy pose Sukhasana. Your spine is straight, extended through the crown. Your palms are resting on your legs, eyes closed. Taking a few centering breaths, embracing knowledge you are infinite. Long inhale, sweeping arms overhead. Long exhale, bringing hands to heart. Once again, long inhale, sweeping arms overhead. Long exhale, hands Anjali Mudra to heart. Holding gratitude for this time and practice on your mat today. Bringing hands in prayer, Anjali Mudra to the third eye chakra. Peace and love to all universal beings, honoring the sacred light in each of us. Bowing, namaste.